Welcome to the Rulebook. I'm your host, Alex Palmer, and I'm the queen of learning things the hard way so you don't have to. On this podcast, we're talking about the mistakes I made and the lessons I learned along the way to create the rules I now live by. On each episode, we'll be discussing a new rule, why I created it, how it came about, and how you can apply it in your own life. So, let's get into it. Welcome back to the Rulebook, everybody. This is episode number 34. Hollywood goes on strike, and like every great revolution, there's a main character at the forefront, except this time she's got really big hair and an even bigger accent, because that's right, I'm talking about our girl, Fran Drescher from Queens. The nanny is back, and she means business. If you didn't know, she's actually the president of the SAG-AFTRA union. And last Thursday, Fran gave a very fiery speech at a press conference calling out the Hollywood executives for their greed. And this one little thing that they tried to slip into the contract, this little itty-bitty proposal that had everything to do with AI. Can you guess what it was? That's right. They wanted to replicate the likeness of background actors in perpetuity and only pay them for a single day's work. Let me put that in plain English for you just in case. They want background actors to go and get a scan. Basically, AI can figure out what to do with their likeness for eternity. And all the execs have to do is pay them a single fee of $187. If you don't know, you actually can make a living as a background actor because, as I just said, you make $187 per day on set. And a lot of people do live like that. So the fact that they want to pretty much do away with that entire part of the industry is freaking mind-boggling. Many of you guys know that Fran Drescher was on the hit sitcom called The Nanny. She played Fran Fine. She was always in tight skirts. She was known for like her nasally voice and accent, and of course for playing like the woman who pretty much didn't belong in the upper classes that, you know, her boss and the children she was taking care of were living in. But baby, you cannot laugh at my girlfriend, and please don't count her out. She's not the cartoon that she once played on daytime TV. Was it daytime TV? I guess technically it was. Okay. You guys also know that my screen name is @SeriousActress across all social media platforms. Am I in the union? I'm actually not in the union. However, I've studied acting for years and years. And as many of you know, I do credit that with a lot of my growth and finding myself. So anything that benefits the actors and the writers, I'm about it. And if this episode helps in any small way, I feel like I did my duty. Okay, there is a lot of confusion about the strike. I see tons of people being like, why do the freaking celebrities need even more money and even more attention? But guess what, guys? It's actually not about the celebrities. There's a ton of actors whose names you do not know who are out there fighting. People who have small roles, people like me who may not even be in the union yet, but who are, you know, taking on these jobs, because actually you have to have like 3 union jobs in order to even apply for the union, however it works. I haven't really crossed that bridge, but one day. So yeah, this is about the thousands of smaller actors and writers and people who cannot make a living doing this job anymore. This is going to obliterate acting as a viable career path unless you're not a Nepo baby. And yeah, Fran doesn't have to fight for these smaller actors. I mean, she's the president, so I mean, she's obligated. But she doesn't have to fight. She already got her residual checks for The Nanny. She's already been down that road. She was in at a time when it was a good time to be an actor. Now, not so much, or a writer. So let's break it down. Why are the people striking? All right, well, once upon a time, there was this little thing called streaming services, and it changed television forever. Yes, I'm talking about Amazon Prime. I'm talking about Netflix. I'm talking about Hulu. I'm talking about, Peacock, all the new ones, because I can't even name them. And I know you guys are feeling the pinch too, because they're charging you $15 per account and you can't share it, but we're not going to go there. But yeah, all of a sudden, there was way more TV shows than ever before, and any single person could never even hope to watch them all. But just because TV was getting bigger doesn't mean that it was actually getting better. There was new faces left and right, and the pressure on writers to churn out new scripts was getting bigger and bigger, baby. Hence the fact why writers went on strike, because not only were they expected to work faster and harder, they were being paid less and less. Shocker, right? Actors, too, are not being paid in proportion to the Hollywood execs. Much like what happened to music artists whose music was now all of a sudden downloadable on YouTube and Apple, they were not reaping the rewards of all that hard work because these bigger streaming services were benefiting far more than the individual artists were. So in an effort to generate fair wages for the actors and writers, there is now a historic strike. Got it? You might be saying, hey, Alex, I'm not a writer and I'm not an actor, so really this doesn't affect me. You're wrong. Because I forgot to throw this in. AI is also affecting the writers. How? Well, the Hollywood executives would like AI to write the base script, the first draft, if you will, and then they want to hire writers to come in and basically edit it. Hence, they would like to pay writers a lot less since they're not the ones coming up with the original content. They're just the ones, sprucing her up. Because as you know, AI really isn't reliable and will just make shit up. So if it was like a historical thing or a biography, something like that, you can't rely on AI because AI is all over the damn place. Okay, but back to what this means for you. While AI starts to replace writers and actors, don't you think that other greedy executives in other industry are going to get wise and start replacing the jobs that you do? Apparently, there was an article recently about a lawyer who used AI to generate a brief for him. The freaking AI machine, whatever, created all these fake cases to support this argument that the lawyer was trying to make. And he got in big trouble. So this just goes to show it really goes across industries. This is all a part of a bigger conversation about how people are paid for their labor and what the rates are. It's been the wild, wild west out here, especially if you work for yourself. And a lot of us are being relegated to contractor work as opposed to being employees of any one given company because, we're millennials and that's what we're doing out here. But I was at a dinner party recently and someone up there had said, no one wants to work anymore. And without skipping a beat, I said, because no one wants to pay. And really, truly, it does all come down to that. He was complaining about people not wanting to show up, to work at his store because we don't want to show up for pennies on the dollar. When inflation is at an all-time high, we don't have health care, most of us. Things are so expensive. And don't even get me started on the fact that I live in New York City, okay? But time and time again, I've been met with these excuses from whoever it is. But we're all sick of hearing, we're a small business. Can you do what you can? Hey, listen, I'm just one person. Can you do what you can for me? Why am I being fed the guilt when you're the one who decided to open a business and you're asking for my services? No, why should I be willing to compromise if you're not willing to compromise? Even last year when I was working as an assistant for someone, she gave me this really low ball offer and I ended up accepting it. And anyway, it didn't last long. But the whole lesson is she was like, well, I'm a small business, da-da-da-da. That's fine, but she was raking in 7 figures and she didn't want to pay me what I was worth. So people will always complain that they don't have the means, which is what Hollywood is literally gaslighting the actors and the writers to do right now. There was an anonymous tip or quote that came out that said, one of these execs said, we're just going to wait out the strike because eventually the writers will start to lose their homes. That's what we're banking on. We're banking on the fact that the writers can't sustain this strike because eventually they'll become so poor and destitute by this strike that they will have no choice but to return to work. How fucking god awful can you be? But that's a lot of people's mentality. So what is rule number 34? It's not that original, but here, this is what it is. Closed mouths don't get fed. And when I first started working as a paralegal, one of the lawyers said this to me on my second day. I was printing something for my boss and it was like, 1,000 pages and I had to make copies and I had to do exhibits because when you go in court, you have to exhibit A, exhibit B, exhibit C, whatever. But you have to have multiple copies of that to give out to opposing counsel and to the judge and to whoever and to the client and blah, 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 to the agency. So I was doing that. I was there for hours. It takes a really long time. And he goes, and one of the lawyers came in and he was like, do you know what you're doing? I was like, yeah, I'm printing this. I'm putting it together. He was like, no, but do you know what it's about? I was like, no, I really don't know what this is about. I don't even know where I'm at because it was like my second day at the law firm. And he goes, let me give you a free piece of advice right now. Closed mouths don't get fed. You better go ask what this is about, and you better start taking an interest about what goes on around here. And I did. When I say that I did, honey, I did. I asked all the questions. I asked to take one of the law books home, and I took it off the shelf, and that book was huge. And I took it home, and I asked my boss, what passages should I read to start learning about the type of law that we practice here? And he was like, what? He was like, no paralegal has ever asked me that. And I don't think he expected me to ask him that, but I took that other lawyer's advice to heart. And honestly, it goes across industries. You should always strive to have as much knowledge and information as you possibly can, because knowledge is power wherever you are. Even if you are just the paralegal, you need to know what the hell you're printing. And maybe this doesn't fit so perfectly into the strike, but hold on, let me sum it up. These writers and these actors need to stand up. We need to fight AI now. Maybe I think a lot of us weren't expecting to do it this soon, but it's happening now. Closed mouths don't get fed. We got to speak up. We got to raise awareness. And there's only two currencies in this world, right? Money and fame. So who better to lead the revolution against this AI bullshit than our beloved celebrities and Hollywood actors? Kudos to them for teaching us this big lesson. And you know what? Artists have constantly been getting fucked in society, left and right. Whether that's not making what they're owed, reduced labor costs, not being paid residuals anymore. I saw all these tweets from other actors who were like, I got 86 checks and it added up to $45. 86 residual checks added up to $45. Let that sink in. There's money to be made. There's a lot of money out there, and there's a lot of people hoarding it. And we're sick of it. We're sick of it, because the more that they reduce labor costs, the more that they try to pay us less and get us to be contract workers when we're doing the same amount of work or more, probably more work than ever before, it's ridiculous. Somebody needs to be held accountable. And I feel like time and time again on this channel, I'm constantly talking about the lack of equality, the lack of equality here, income equality. It's horrible. It's sad. It's depressing. This is America, and we can't get by. We can't get by. There's an abundance of wealth here. It's sick. But this also reminds me of what it was like for me growing up. Constantly, my mom was, telling me to be quiet, not to speak. She's right now living with me as her apartment is going under a few renovations. And every time I try to project my voice, she tells me, stop screaming. And I realize, oh my God, I grew up this way, with someone constantly in my ear. Anytime I became emotional or invigorated or whatever, someone telling me to stop screaming. But I'm not screaming. I'm merely making myself be heard. And there's no crime in that. We have to make ourselves heard. Closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't stand up, if you don't speak up, if you don't project and communicate the ideas that you want to communicate, that you need to communicate with other people in order to get your needs met, guess what? They'll never be met. And unfortunately, I grew up that way. I grew up being taught to shrink myself, to stay small, to stay quiet, to make my needs disappear. But the more your needs disappear, the more that you disappear as a person. And we can't let that happen, because literally our survival depends on it. So I hope that you will support the strike, now knowing what we all know. And it's not about the millionaires, and it's not about making the rich richer. That's not what anyone's trying to do. Because honestly, you think Margot Robbie needs to walk out of Barbie and support the strike? No, she doesn't. Margot Robbie's set for life, probably, if she has a good accountant. They don't have as much skin in the game as you think they do. But Meryl Streep and Jennifer Lawrence and all these actors, they signed off on the fact that they would be willing to support a strike, which is shocking, because what do they really stand to benefit from it? I don't know, maybe they all checked out that first episode of Black Mirror this season where Salma Hayek has to take a shit in a church. Maybe that spooked them. Who knows? But they don't have to be doing what they're doing. This is for the smaller fish out there. So pay attention. Pay attention to this strike. Pay attention to the UPS who's about to strike. Pay attention to the food workers, the fast food workers in LA who were striking this weekend because they want fair wages. Unfortunately, something big is happening right now. And it's not because people don't want to work. It's because people don't want to pay. So guys, hopefully Fran Drescher is the one who leads us to victory, because for God's sakes, the robots are here. As hilarious and comedic and weird and funny as that is, it actually is kind of scary. So guys, if you like this episode, please subscribe to this podcast. Comment below what you think, if you think that your job could be potentially taken by a freaking AI robot, or if you feel like you're safe. Also comment or DM me on Instagram at Serious Actress any topics you'd like for me to cover in a future episode. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye.